It's got 4 wheels.
It's got 2 clutches, but no clutch pedal. What gives? My name's Gabby.
And I'm Charlotte.
And we're from the Kia Hyundai channel, but today's video is not necessarily about Kia Hyundai product. It's about dual clutch transmission.
Now, what comes to mind when you think of a dual clutch transmission?
I like to think of the Porsche PDK. You find it in your favorite sports cars, Porsche sports cars.
Duh. But today, in today's video, we're actually talking about the fact that most manufacturers and everyday vehicles are utilizing a dual clutch transmission. For example, we've got the 24 Hyundai Santa Fe. You can also see it in the Kia Sorento and a lot of your hybrid vehicles.
So from what type to drive type dual clutch transmissions, there's a lot you should probably know about it, especially if you're considering it in your next mainstream vehicle purchase. So today we're going to explain what a dual clutch transmission is, some things you should absolutely not do with it, and then
we're also going to talk about what can you do with it and what tech and safety features is your vehicle equipped with to make the most of your dual clutch.
Let's get into it. All right, so we literally went from Santa Fe to PDK. I'm in a different vehicle, but I'm still going to talk about the same thing. So first things first, what is a dual clutch? As the name suggests, it features 2 clutches. One is going to handle the odd gears, one's going to handle the even gears. So for example, an 8-speed dual clutch, you're going to have one handling 1, 3, 5, 7, and then your other clutch is going to handle 2, 4, 6, and 8. So pretty simple, right? What makes this vehicle very, very different, or this transmission type very different, is the way it actually shifts and the way your vehicle is going to cue up its shift pattern. Essentially, if I'm in gear 1, my car already has gear 2 locked and loaded, ready to shift in an instant. So that's why it's so popular with high-end performance sports cars, but also just your regular day-to-day car. It's smooth and it's efficient, and you get virtually, I wouldn't say no power loss, but less power loss in between gear shifts. So again, manual drivers, you might be mad, it's not a real manual or it's not real clutches, but it is a computer, it's fast, it's efficient, and a computer is always going to be quicker than a person. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things you cannot do, so absolutely no-nos when it comes to a dual clutch transmission. Number 1 is something I'm really used to because I'm a day-to-day traffic driver. Every single day there's traffic where I live. That's just part of living downtown. Essentially, you don't want to creep with a dual clutch transmission. And what I mean by that is if you're someone who feathers the brake, so you're slowly letting off the brake, but you're kind of riding it, just like where you'd ride a clutch in a manual car, that is so bad for a dual clutch transmission. And a lot of people don't realize that. Essentially, what you're going to want to do instead is watch this video till the end because Charlotte's going to give some tips and tricks and some features that a lot of our products offer that minimize this. But just so you know, essentially, you don't do that. You just hold your brake or you hit the gas. No in between. Next up is when you're going uphill and you're facing a stop at an uphill, let's say you hit traffic going uphill. It happens. I am guilty for this. I like to let my vehicle do its thing. Let my vehicle balance. I'm not on the brake, but I'm also not on the gas. So my car is just using its transmission to hold itself up. Mind you, I don't drive a DCT, and I also don't have a manual transmission car. This is bad on a dual clutch because essentially gravity is working against it and the vehicle is holding itself up with its transmission. What you're going to want to do in this case is, again, utilize your brakes. You want to fully depress your brake pedal. Once you have enough gap in between your car and the car ahead of you to go, then you hit your gas and you go. You do not stay in that in-between zone. Then number 3, a lot of manual drivers are used to throwing their car into neutral every time they face a sufficient stop. So if you're at a busy red light and you know you're going to be there for a minute, or if it's just really bad stop and go traffic, throw your car into neutral, chill out, do your thing. That's not going to do anything in a dual clutch transmission. It's not necessarily horrible for your car, but it's kind of counterproductive. It doesn't really do anything, like I said. So you don't have to do that. If you know you're going to be at a stop for a long time, again, utilize that brake hold function, which a lot of modern cars have, or just fully depress the brake pedal, keep your foot there, or even throw your car into park. You do not have to put it into neutral, then shift it back into drive, causing your vehicle to kind of abruptly be in neutral, or be in drive, sorry. Same thing with launches. You don't want to launch your car from neutral straight to drive, mid-speed. Not good for your clutch. That's just not good. So if all that sounded a little confusing, I know I can ramble a bit sometimes. Before Charlotte gives her tips and tricks, I'm going to share something that I think really simplifies everything I said. So essentially, when your foot is fully depressed on the brake pedal, that clutch is disengaged. So it's not working overtime. The car's fine, essentially. So if you're in stop and go conditions, fully depress the brake until the gap between you and the car ahead of you is wide enough for you to actually hit the gas and get going. Now, what you don't want to do is feather that brake. So do not ride the brake, do not ride the clutch. That is keeping your clutch in an engaged yet disengaged kind of in the middle, and essentially you're leading your car on. Am I going to go? Am I not going to go? It's not good for the overall lifespan of the vehicle. It's not going to make your car blow up instantly, but it's not good if you're someone who plans on keeping this car for a long time. And again, this video is not to scare you, but it's just best practices. And then the opposite, when your foot is fully on the gas or just fully released from the brake in general, that clutch is engaged, that car is queuing up its next gear, it's ready to roll, and it is in its prime. Now let's see what Charlotte has to say. She's got some great tips about best practices when it comes to your dual clutch transmission. Let's get into it.
So as Gabby mentioned, creeping and crawling is not going to be a best practice for your DCT. Now, of course, we get that in stop and go traffic, it's going to happen, and it is one of those things that is unavoidable. But we do want to try to minimize it, and that's why we've got some really cool features. So in the Kia and Hyundai lineup, we have something called auto hold. Now, depending on the vehicle and the manufacturer, it may go by a different name, may have a different symbol. The principle is going to stay the same. What this feature does is when it's engaged and you are driving, the vehicle's in drive, you bring it to a full and complete stop, you are actually able to take your foot off the brake and it's going to hold you there. And pretty much what it's going to do is the clutch is going to be disengaged, and instead of getting that creepy, crawly kind of slip of the clutch that you normally or typically could, especially if you're used to driving a manual vehicle, it is going to keep you at a full stop with the brake. That way, when you put your foot back on the gas, you're ready to accelerate. And this is just because, again, with the DCT, it's better to come to a complete stop and then accelerate than to keep that creepy, crawly. Stopping on an incline. A lot of people don't necessarily think about that when they are driving an automatic vehicle, but they definitely do when they're driving a manual vehicle. So again, similar to what we talked about with auto hold, is a lot of manufacturers are going to introduce a new feature, which is this one right here, going by the name of brake hill assist in the Kia Hyundai lineup. Again, depending on your OEM, it could differ. And again, what this is going to do is when it's engaged and you're on a hill, it actually will hold you at a stop, again, giving you a little bit of extra time to put your foot on the gas when you're moving it from the brake. And this is really helpful, especially in a DCT, because again, you don't have a torque converter, so you're not utilizing the transmission and that built up tension to kind of keep you moving or then to propel you forward. Instead, you are stopping with the brakes. You're not necessarily going or stopping with the transmission. So the last two items I want to talk about are really going to center on the steering wheel. So from here, we're going to have a lane follow assist, and also behind that you can see we've got our paddle shifters. But when it comes to smart cruise control and your lane follow assist, your following distance, I want to talk about that because if you are driving on the highway and you have adaptive cruise control, what you can do is you can actually set your following distance to the maximum amount. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep your vehicle in gear, giving you a little bit more time to move, to drive, instead of bringing you down to that creepy, crawly type of pace that we've talked about a little bit before. So that is great, especially if you're on the highway and you want to utilize that feature. The other thing is when it comes to a DCT vehicle, more than often, especially on the Kia Hyundai lineup, you're going to have paddle shifters, which are really fun to use. But I want to talk a little bit about shift logic in this vehicle. So a lot of the times the vehicle will necessarily adapt to your driving style, but I almost find it to be the opposite when it comes to a DCT with paddle shifters. Of course, if I am, slowing down and I want to change gears, sometimes it isn't the most responsive if I'm going in the opposite gear. And in order to really make the most of it and to get those quick, fast shifts, I need to be the one anticipating what the vehicle is going to do instead of the vehicle anticipating what I'm going to do. Now, if that scares you, using paddle shifters because you're like, hey, I don't really know anything about a DCT, that's okay. If you're driving this vehicle normally, it's still going to change gears normally and operate as designed for you. It's still an automatic vehicle. And even if you accidentally change gears or gear down, gear up, whatever, if the vehicle senses you're not doing that anymore, it's going to go and put it back into the gear it's supposed to be. So don't worry. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us in today's video as we talk about DCTs, what you shouldn't do, what you can do, and some pretty cool tech. In the comments down below, if you are a DCT lover or hater or daily driver, why not leave some of your best practices and what you like to do in your car in the comments down below. As always, subscribe to this YouTube channel if this is the first video of us you're seeing. We do live streams every single day, every single weekday at 2 p.m. And also we post extra videos throughout the week, usually resulting in 10 to 12 videos a week. Wow. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
But now let's see what Charlotte has to say about some best practice. All right.